So sitting next to you, or sitting behind you, or front, so sitting next to you, you might be sitting next to a black devil.
It states in Psalms chapter 82, verse 6, I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High.
The nation, Dr. York, Amanubi Rachta. All right, that is a track by myself for the Nuwabian music label. So we starting off on the right track. That's what we have to offer. So anyway, this is Right Knowledge Radio. This is your host, Murhuta Hedokayu. And today is November 13th, 2022, the 4th month, 11th day, the 82nd year of the Nuwabian calendar. And today we want to talk about the word more. We do want to talk about the word more, but we also want to talk about the Algonquin people of Turtle Island. I know a lot of Moors out there want to say that, you know, they're from Africa, which is possible, man. I think it's definitely possible. But the story that they learned from the Caucasoid, from Melvin Haskovitz, who came up with the out of Africa theory, has not been proven. Right, and again, that's those are Caucasus people, right? Those are Caucasus people. So again, we have to start referencing our own information. The base of our information must be from us, and I think anything else than that, if you could use a Caucasoid man's information to find out more about yourself. Of course, that's always welcome, but make sure you're filtering your sources. You know what I mean? In academics, of course, you want to filter your sources. So, what sparked my, I guess, my interest in the word more? I heard a brother on, I think it's Doggy Diamonds TV. He's out of New York. And he mentioned that the word more meant mooring, mooring, right? That is a seafaring term, right? Like if you're porting but that's their definition of moor. So the brother was actually brilliant talking about what tribe he was from in Turtle Island. You know what I'm saying? We call this Turtle Island, so it was very interesting to hear the brother talk. I think all of his information was correct. I don't know for sure because I'm still doing the knowledge on myself and my tribe, the Aniuwea. I'm not jumping back to Africa. You know what I'm saying? Even though we're all the same race of people who I call Moors. I call them Moors, all right? That's what I call them. That's what we are known throughout history before the term black came. We've never called ourselves black. Kemet means the black land. It means the black land, not the black man. So I think a lot of Negro scholars, see, if I call you a Negro scholar, I'm saying you don't know who you are. If the negro means the same thing as black, translated from Spanish to English. So if I call you a Negro, it is kind of a disrespectful term. I'm saying that you don't know who you are. And same for every other race that calls you a nigga or a Negro, and you think it's some funny term of endearment. No, it's not a term of endearment. It's saying that you don't know who you are. You're stupid because you don't know who you are, right? We want to correct that by saying, hey, instead of saying your race is black, because there's no such thing as a black race. Black was a legal term that was invented by the Caucasoid. Because remember, we're talking about English here. We're not saying kheme. Kheme is the color black in Nuwabic. We're not saying kheme. We're saying black, which has its origins in German, block, which meant pale. If you don't believe me, go check it out in the English etymology dictionary, all right? Or word book. Dictionary is a Latin term. But anyway, I don't want to get too anal about that. So the word more actually is a Tamarian word. If you look in the E.A. Wallace E.A. Wallace Budge dictionary, volumes 1 and 2, I think it's in volume 1, where's the word Maor, and it meant the high priest of Anu, the Anu people. You're going to find out the Anu people, who some brothers ignorantly just try to say he's a flesh-eating reptilian. I mean, human beings are flesh-eating reptilians. Don't we like chicken and beef and cows? So if we got that from our reptilian ancestors, then so be it. That's who you are. That's who you are. Are you trying to say that's original sin? And people know the group I'm talking to. If you're a Nuwabian, you know who I'm talking to, because you know who came out in the early 2000 teens trying to say Anu is just a flesh-eating reptilian, when that is not described like that in the King James Version Bible. So they're trying to twist and bounce words to try to get you to disbelieve. Well, we don't believe anyway, but to not trust in Anu. When his son Nudimud Anki is the one who created us, or partly in the Adamite project, right, on Mars. You've seen the face on Mars. That's the symbol of the Adamite project, right, where we were created in a lab to be slaves for the Anunnaki, right? So anyway, going back to the word more is the Anu people. The Anu people, who were also called the Twa people. We call them the Tahite people, which are short, heavily melanated, woolly-haired beings that were considered giants or gods, not because of their physical size, but because of what they knew. Their knowledge was great, so we called them gods. All right? And Maor or Moor, right, just reflects that. So, and we're going to read this book, all right, by Dr. David Imhotep, PhD, and it's called The First Americans Were Africans, right? So the first Americans were Africans. What is that title really trying to say? The first, because that doesn't make sense. The first Americans were Africans. I think what the title's trying to say is that we call Africans Nubians. So we said the Nubians came over here. The book is saying at least 60,000 years ago, at least. But if you're a Nuwabian, our history goes back to when the continents were all one. Ganawa, right? Ganawa. They'll call it Pangea, which is a Greek term, which is a Hellenistic term. The Greeks didn't even call themselves Greeks. They were the Helena people, where you get the word hell from. Also, the word color. Color comes from the word kel, which also relates to the word hell. Do your etymology research, right? There's like shul, right, is a Aramic term, right? Shul, right? Shul meant hell. So why did the English say shul? They take shul and made the word school. So does that mean you're sending your kids to hell? Better do your homework, okay? You better do your homework. Okay. So, yes, we're going to read about 10 pages in this book, and I'm going to give some commentary where I feel like it's needed, all right? So here we go. The title of the paragraph is Southern Algonquins, all right? Excuse me. The VDHR, Virginia Department of Historic Resources, has revealed in their literature that the American Indians were in Virginia at least 16,000 years ago, right? Now, this book is like an academic book, so there's a bibliography here, and it says 88. You look down at the bottom of page 88, I guess the author's name was J. Home, James River Plantation Colonization. That's the name of the book. Retrieved on June 12th, 2009 from http://nps.gov. So that's a government website, okay? Slash history slash nr slash travel slash James River slash colonization.htm. So that's a pretty credible source for the United States government, okay? You might want to go check that out. That is 14,508 years before Columbus's arrival, even though this 16,000-year discovery is even more recent than the 51,700-year-old South Carolina find. The 16,000-year discovery is still 4,000 years before the Bering Strait glaciers first began to melt around 12,000 years ago. Relating this find to Clovis, Paleo-Indians are documented by the state of Virginia have been in North America 6,600 years before the Clovis people in 9,400 BC. But what group of Paleo-Indians is most likely to have been in Virginia 16,000 years ago? Here again, a familiar name resurfaces. The best guess is that it was the Algonquin. Maps tracking the Algonquin show that their first concentration was in southeastern Canada and the northeastern United States. And there's another bibliography reference, 89, L. Campbell et al., 2004, North American Indian Cultures, Washington, D.C., National Geographic Society. So you can tell this brother is not just getting his information just from anywhere. He's going to credible sources. I'm not saying it's precise sources, but these people do have resources to do good investigative archaeological research. All right, moving on. Another note that sets the Algonquin apart from other Amerins. Amerins is who the author is calling the Asian. The Asian is known as the Amerins, right? Or a mixture of Moor and Asian is what he's calling the Amerins. So I'm going to read that over again. Another note that sets the Algonquin apart from other Amerins is the fact that several different tribes were asked where they originated. The most popular answer was something to the effect that they have always been here on Turtle Island, North America, and did not migrate from anywhere. The Americas were also known as Abya Yala by the South American indigenous tribes of the equatorial regions, the Ichilan by the Mexican tribes, and more recently Turtle Island by the Canadian First Nation tribes of the lower lands. To clarify the origin issue, a curious event took place in the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C., located on the National Mall next to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. On the afternoon of September 4, 2010, Dennis Zotif, I don't know how to pronounce that, gave a general admission lecture in the Potomac room. Mr. Zotif said he is a mixture of three tribes, the Koia, the Santi Dakota, and the Oke Owinge. He gave a basic speech about the so-called Native Americans, followed by a question and answer period. The question was asked, from where did Native Americans originate? Mr. Zotif's answer was a little longer than the standard answer we'd always been given. He said that our creation story says we came from the heavens. We came from the stars. We came from beneath the earth. We came from the lakes. We came from the valleys. We came from the hills. We came from the mountains. We came from the canyons and islands. These are our creation stories, which have to be accepted as faith, much as Christianity has to be accepted by faith. And it is no less valuable. This is what we have been passed down from generation to generation of where we believe we were created. The Algonquin Indians are one of the few Indian groups today who claim that they originate somewhere other than in the Americas. The following, however, is a matter of documented history. The Shawnee Indians are part of the Algonquin family. In the early 1800s, Shawnee Indian agent John Johnson reported in a letter that the Algonquin Indians told him that they had came from across the sea, the Atlantic Ocean. The report was later still reprinted by Schoolcraft in 1851 in his Archaeologia Americana, page 273. Johnson wrote, "The people of this nation have a tradition that their ancestors crossed the sea. They are the only tribe with which I am acquainted who admits to a foreign origin. Lately, they kept early sacrifices for their safe arrival in this country. From where they came or at what time period, they do not know." These people not only passed the story of their origin down from generation to generation, they held early sacrifices to commemorate their journey. A second separate origin story from another tribe in the Algonquin linguistic family concerns the Sauk Indians of Sauk County, which is near Barabo, Wisconsin. When French immigrants were settling in the town of Barabo during the early 1800s, resident Sauk Indians still revered a giant who saved their ancestors by leading them to safety on the shores of Turtle Island, the Sauk name for North America, after a great deluge drowned their original lodge place in the Sunrise Sea, the Atlantic Ocean. In the third example, Proto-Americans have indicated from where they originate is in an area completely across North America in California, where the descendants of the Yurok people still live today. In 1916, Lisa Thompson, a.k.a. Chenawa Wechawa, a Klamath River Yurok woman, wrote about a very interesting story. After introducing herself, she said that her people have a historic tradition of their migration across Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. "I am a pure, full-blooded Klamath River woman, a member of ... the exclusive priestly society known as the Toth. I can understand every word, every nod, and every gesture in our language. Therefore, I feel that I am in a better position than any other person to tell the true facts of the religion and the meaning of the many things that we use to commemorate the events of the past." She then began to tell the historic trip her people made. "In our recollections of the past, we left the land of our birth, Chikath, many thousands of years ago. For years we wandered down a European land, always moving south, having our origin in the far north, as it might have been for centuries until we reached the trolling waves of the ocean. Upon reaching this salt water, we made boats or canoes and paddled west over the waves until we reached the opposite shore, having crossed the strait safely. Having reached this opposite shore upon this new continent, we continued, always going south as before." Looking back, she remembered, "We carried the memory of the far north, the huge icebergs, the splendors of the aurora borealis flickered across the snowy fields. In this land of the frozen north, some of our people were left, the Eskimo. They were given a different language as they were separated from our sturdy band across the snowy fields, and have long since from this time on inhabited the land of the perpetual snow. The first hint that these Yurok were originally Africans is one of their splinter groups were the Eskimo, which linguistically changed over time to Eskimo. You may have read about the first Eskimos in Note O, where you shall learn that the Eskimo people's heritage began in Africa. Once they reached the shores of this new continent, they continued their historic trek and story in the Americas, saying, "Thus we traveled down a great continent, leaving behind at our stopping places a portion of our people, which were given different languages, and our tribes became numerous. We traveled over the continent of North America to the equator and regions of perpetual sunshine, and beyond the equator over the continent of South America to its furthermost southern borders, where we merged into the regions of ice and snow again at Tierra del Fuego." This is the story of the Yurok people who spoke of their beginnings in their treasured Chik-Chik-Oth Valley in northern Europe. How did the Proto-Yurok come to be in northern Europe in the first place? This leads us to the second hint that Yurok were originally African. The first Homo sapien Europeans were Africans, more specifically short-statured sub-Saharan Khoisan Africans, known by their haplogroup N DNA they carried with them to ancient Europe 40,000 years ago. This evidence has been scientifically studied and documented in my dissertation. To solidify the Khoisan Aurignacian migration from northwestern Africa to Europe story, Nature 2011 magazine stated that the earliest anatomically modern humans in Europe are thought to have appeared around 43,000 to 42,000 BC, calendar years before present, by association with the Aurignacian sites and lithic assemblages, a collection of stone tools assumed to have been made by modern humans rather than Neanderthals. Using archaeological studying ancient artifacts, craniometric, the scientific measure of skulls, anthropological, the physical and cultural study of humankind, and studying human genes using samples of ancient mtDNA, what I think is mitochondrial DNA, we examined the possibility that there was a third exit from Africa of atomically modern humans, AMH, across the Straits of Gibraltar into Iberia, right, which is Spain, and thence throughout Eurasia. The finding of ancient sub-Saharan mitochondrial mtDNA and related evidence make it clear that the Aurignacian culture was taken into Eurasia from Africa by Cro-Magnon people crossing the Straits of Gibraltar. Right? Very interesting what they're saying here. And that's 101 in the bibliography. And Clyde Winters, the Gibraltar, the book is called, Clyde Winters, 2011. The book is called The Gibraltar Out of Africa Exit for Atomically Modern Humans. Okay? So maybe that's also why the Moors went into Spain to reclaim their ancestors' heritage from the Cro-Magnon people, what they're calling Cro-Magnon people. These sub-Saharan people who left Africa crossing the Straits of Gibraltar into Europe, who then heading north and east, are known by several names: Khoisan, Aurignacian, Cro-Magnon, and later Grimaldi. Until recently, it was assumed that the earliest days for the HGN were in Eastern Eurasia. The view has changed recently as a result of extraction and examination of ancient mitochondrial DNA from Cro-Magnon skeletons dating to the Aurignacian period. The archaeological evidence indicates that the AMH, anatomical modern humans, replaced Neanderthal during the Aurignacian period in Europe between 32 and 35 KYA. Not sure what KYA is, but it's some type of time period that they're measuring. The Khoisan Aurignacian civilization appears to have expanded from west to east. The founders of this culture came from Africa. Some researchers have argued that the Aurignacian culture was introduced to Europe from Africa. They based this conclusion on the fact that its toolkit was foreign to the Mousterian type, and the culture appears in a mature form throughout Europe, from France to Central Europe. In conclusion, the classic Aurignacian culture probably began in Africa, crossed the Straits of Gibraltar into Iberia, and expanded eastward across Europe. All right. I'm going to end it there. We got a couple more pages here to read in this book. Very interesting, very enlightening that the Algonquin Moors tell their story about how they came basically from Africa, from Europe, said they were in Europe and then came to Africa, right? But we're talking, the author is putting it in the context of like 30 to 40,000 years, I would say. So we know this is before the Caucasian was in Europe, because remember, Caucasian goes back to the Caucasus Mountains, not Europe. So they're native to the Caucasus Mountains, and then they spread out, right? So it's very, very interesting to hear that the Algonquin people, which Cherokee, Aniawea are Algonquin people, trace our history back to overseas, right? Which I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with. Now, I know other folks that are trying to cause division, between, are you a Moor from Turtle Island or are you a Moor from Nubia? Because we're all the same race of people, just different variations, right? But our haplogroups all go back to the same haplogroup, right? Which originates in Ghana when all the land was one millions of years ago, right? Millions of years ago. This is what we're trying to tell people. And how we originated millions of years ago, we came from the Anunnaki. The Dogon tribe will tell you that. Ancient Tamarean, who they're calling ancient Egyptians, will tell you that in their stories. We're not from this planet originally, us as Moors. Now, we don't believe that the Caucasian and the Asian have the same creators as the Moor, right? There's different creators. God made man in his image. Well, then why do people look so different, right? What God and what people are you talking about, right? And since the people who wrote the original Bible out of ancient Egypt, and Serapis, the Greek ruler over Egypt at that time, over Tamare, wanted his own creation story. So we gave it to him, right? From some of our religion, they created a new religion out of it, right? So the first Christians were really Coptic, Egyptian, Moorish Christians. Those are the first Christians, right? So very interesting. Everything pretty much ties in. The more knowledge you get, the better picture you could paint for yourself on the past actual facts, right? The actual facts, right? So anyway, we're going to end it right here. Thank you for joining me for this reading today on this beautiful weekend. Well, it's pretty cold out where we live. But we're here on Nuwabian. Me and my wife are having a relaxing day on the porch, sipping some tea, some honey tea with lemon in it, staying healthy. And we're hoping to see some of y'all on the land, man. Those who want to make that move to build the community as the master teacher wanted us to do. If your heart is in the right place, get with us. Please call 855-849-1799. You can hit any of the extensions. And don't forget to visit www.unnm.com. That's www.unnm.net. I'm sorry. I said .com. It's actually .net. I'm sorry. So again, that's www.unnm.net. All right. And everybody have a great day. Wadu.
So sitting next to you, or sitting behind you, or front, so sitting next to you, you might be sitting next to a black devil.
It states in Psalms chapter 82, verse 6, I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High.